All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, June 10th meeting of the Missoula Board of County Commissioners. Things are a little different these days. We are meeting in person for the first time in over a year and trying this hybrid meeting format where there are folks joining us online and also folks in the room here. Please bear with us if there are a few glitches, but so far so good. 1 minute into the meeting, so bear with us. And at this point in time, as per tradition, I would like to make a land acknowledgement. And this is that Missoula County acknowledges that this event today takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Any public announcements today? We do have a proclamation to read. Would one of my colleagues be... Hang on a second here. Read it? Sure. Okay.
Whereas Missoula County acknowledges the lasting impacts of racism in the United States, fueled largely by the horrific institution of slavery, and whereas news of the end of slavery did not reach frontier areas of the United States, and in particular the southwestern states, for more than 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, and months after the conclusion of the Civil War. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, with news that the Civil War had ended and that the enslaved were free. And whereas African Americans who had been slaves in the Southwest celebrated June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth, Independence Day, as the anniversary of their emancipation. And whereas African Americans from the Southwest and across the country continue the tradition of Juneteenth, Independence Day, as inspiration and encouragement for future generations. And whereas more than 150 years, for more than 150 years, Juneteenth Independence Day celebrations have been held to honor African American freedom while encouraging self-development, respect, and dignity for all people. And whereas a strength of character, faith, and resilience demonstrated by former slaves remains an example for all people of the United States, regardless of background, religion, or race. And whereas the character demonstrated by former slaves should inspire us in this country to give thanks for the freedom won by so many people in all nations, and to strive for the goals of bringing freedom and democracy to people of other countries, no matter what their race or religion. And whereas although Juneteenth Independence Day is beginning to be recognized as a national and even global event, the history behind the celebration should not be forgotten. And whereas Montana proudly joins 47 states and the District of Columbia in observing Juneteenth as a state of ceremonial holiday, as a state or ceremonial holiday. Therefore, be it resolved, we, Missoula County and the City of Missoula, do hereby proclaim the 19th of June as Juneteenth Independence Day, to commemorate African American emancipation from slavery, to celebrate the freedom won by people in many countries, and to rededicate ourselves to the cause of liberty.
Thank you, Juanita. And is my mic working for folks? Can you hear out there? Okay, I just need to get a little closer. So I failed to introduce ourselves earlier. For those of you out there in the viewing audience, I am Dave Strohmeyer. I am chair of the commission this year. I am flanked on my left, your right, by Commissioner Josh Slotnick, and on my right, your left, by Commissioner Juanita Vero. Next, we have on our agenda public comment on items not on today's agenda. And just by way of our hybrid meeting format, if you are in the room physically in the Sophie Moise room in the Missoula County Courthouse, and at any point where public comment is relevant on a particular item, just come on up and queue up behind the podium and we'll take you in order. If you are out there in the virtual world, joining us via Microsoft Teams, please use the raise hand function and we will call on you in the order in which you raise your hand. Or if you're on the phone, just unmute yourself, *6, I believe. Is that correct, Violet? Unmute yourself and chime in when you can at the appropriate time. So any public comment on items not otherwise listed on our agenda? All right, seeing none, our current claims list, and this would be claims received as of May 25th, 2021 through May 31st, 2021 by the Commissioner's Office, total $1,179,084.46. We have 3 public hearings today, and for each of these, we will open with a staff report. That would be followed by comments from or a presentation by either the applicant or the applicant's representative. It would be then followed by public comment. We'll close the public hearing, open it up for questions from the commission, and that would be followed by a motion and debate and vote. So without further ado, I'll open the first public hearing. This is the Nice Moran family transfer. Nick, would you like to introduce this for us?
Yes, thank you, Dave. Let me share my screen, presentation, and we'll get going. So this is a proposal by Rachel Moran to use the family transfer exemption to the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act. Starting with the quick background of the project, the location of the proposed family transfer is off of Browton Drive, which is approximately 1 mile to the east of US Highway 93 North in the foothills leading up to Evero Hill. The property is currently unzoned. The growth plan that covers this area is the 2019 land use element. That plan designates this tract as working land with a recommended density of 1 dwelling per 160 acres to 1 dwelling per 40 acres. The property is 40 acres in size. There's currently 1 home on the property occupied by the claimant, Rachel Moran, and there's 1 detached shop structure as well. Current density is 1 dwelling per 40 acres. The proposed family transfer would result in the claimant's mother, Deborah Sorensen, receiving a 20-acre tract, which is proposed as Tract B. The claimant, Rachel Moran, would retain ownership of the remaining 20 acres, proposed as Tract A, and this does include the home and shop structure. The proposed family transfer would exceed the 2019 land use element recommended density at 1 dwelling per 20 acres, and the application states that all tracts are intended to remain rural residential. The application was sent out to Missoula County agencies for comment. The only comment received was from the health department, which commented that this project would require sanitation review per Title 76.4. Now, as with every family transfer proposal, I will go over the rebuttable presumptions and general evasion criteria points triggered during staff analysis. General evasion number 14 is the proposed division incompatible with the growth policy, and this is applicable. Current density is 1 dwelling per 40 acres, and the recommended density is 1 dwelling per 40 acres. The proposal would result in a new density of 1 dwelling per 20 acres, which would exceed the recommended density. Next, I will go over the family transfer questions with the claimant. I think I saw the claimant Rachel Moran online here. If I could have you unmute, we can go over these questions.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect, thank you. First, I'll ask you to state your name for record.
Rochelle Moran.
Thank you. Question number 1, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
No.
Question number 2, do you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No.
Question number 3, have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
No, not yet.
Thank you. Question 4, because the recipient is not a minor, so we will go over these last 2 questions. Question 4, okay. Will the property be developed?
As in
Do you
Putting up-
plan to, yeah, structure on it?
Yes.
And question number 5, will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Thank you. And then, based on staff analysis, CAPS is recommending approval of the proposed family transfer. Now I'll turn it back over to you, commissioners.
Thanks, Nick. Ms. Moran, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? And you may be muted. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear me
Yep, we can hear you now.
now? No, not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this proposed family transfer? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Questions from the commission on this?
Hey, Nick, can you take us back to where we are and can we get a sense of the development in the area?
Yep.
Would
Let
that
me do
be
that Yeah. So this is Broughton Drive here. I'm gonna zoom out. So we have Highway 93 North, and we're in the foothills leading up to Overoak Hill. We have the Y down here to the south. And just zooming in on the immediate development area. Yeah, I'll see.
Okay, and Rochelle, this is for your mother, right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else, Juanita? So Nick, I have a question. As you were reviewing this, clearly one of the evasion criteria that is triggered is the significant departure from the growth policy and the recommended density for this area. Were there any other natural resource concerns that folks had with what arguably is fragmentation of a fairly intact landscape here?
I did not receive any comments based on wildlife habitat. No.
Okay, and no other concerns beyond lack of compliance with the growth policy? No other concerns?
No, that was the only trigger. The only point that was triggered during staff analysis. Everything else was compliant with our rebuttable presumptions and general evasion criteria points.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, Nick, would you provide us, or whoever is driving this, provide us with the motion again?
Yep, sorry, plot back to that. Should be on your screen now.
Thank you.
Happy to do this one. All right, I would move that the request by Rochelle Moran to utilize the family transfer exemption to create and transfer one parcel to her mother, Deborah Sorensen, as presented in the exemption application and affidavit be approved.
Second.
Further discussion? I would just say that I am generally reluctant to approve these sorts of things when there's a significant or substantial lack of compliance with the growth policy, and there is, in this case, I worry that we find ourselves in a situation of death by 1,000 cuts with large intact tracts being carved up this way. That said, we did not hear any additional concerns from staff as far as the proposal as presented. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moran.
Thank you. Oh, and also my mom's name is spelled wrong. Does that?
No, but I
what is
can
the-
correct the approval letter and
Okay. Her last name is Nice, not Sorensen.
okay.
Okay.
Does she wish her name was Sorensen? I
Maybe.
okay. We can we'll fix that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Moving right along, our next public hearing, which I will open, is the Bourdon family transfer. Nick, would you please provide the staff report for us?
Yep. So this is a proposal by Helen Bourdon to use the family transfer exemption to the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act. Starting with the background, the location of the proposed family transfer is within Flathead Reservation boundaries, which is on the east side of Highway 93 North, near the top of Evero Hill. The property is currently unzoned. The growth plan that covers this area is the 2002 Regional Land Use Guide, which designates this tract as open and resource with a recommended density of 1 dwelling per 40 acres. Property is 69.6 acres in size and currently undeveloped. The claimant, Helen Bourdon, owns 3 additional tracts adjacent to and in the general vicinity of the proposed family transfer site. The claimant, Ms. Bourdon, lives at 5232 Musket Lane. There's also a tourist home located on this parcel, and that is the island parcel in the middle here, that with the arrow pointing to it. The family transfer proposal would result in the claimant's adult son, Damien, receiving a 37.43 acre tract, proposed as tract 10A1. The claimant, Helen Bourdon, would retain ownership of the remaining 32.17 acres, proposed as tract 10A2. The proposed family transfer would exceed the recommended density of the 2002 Regional Land Use Guide with a proposed density of 1 dwelling per 34.8 acres. The application states that all tracts are intended to remain rural residential. The application was sent out to Missoula County agencies for comment. The Water Quality District commented that the area is known for high groundwater, and they recommended that they get in contact with the health department to conduct groundwater monitoring. The application was also sent out to the Confederated Salish Kootenai tribes for comment. We received comment from the Wildlife Management Program that they do have records of grizzly bears passing through the area. However, they do not see any adverse impacts to wildlife or wildlife habitat with the project. Now, as with every family transfer proposal, I will go over the rebuttable presumption and general evasion criteria points triggered during staff analysis. Rebuttable presumption number 4 is found to be applicable. The claimant owns 3 additional tracts adjacent to and in the general vicinity of the proposed family transfer parcel. A boundary line relocation could be utilized to achieve the goals of the family transfer exemption without the creation of an additional lot. General evasion number 4 is also applicable. CAPS's record of an 18-lot major subdivision called Cougar Ranch, which was proposed on the site of the proposed family transfer in approximately 2006. Internal records indicate that the project made it to the neighborhood meeting phase of development, and our records do not indicate that this project made it any further than this stage of development. CAPS also has a record of an approved gravel pit operation involving the proposed family transfer parcel and the parcel to the north. Satellite imagery shows that the gravel pit operation may be fully contained to the parcel to the north. However, permit records did specifically call out the geocode of the proposed family transfer site. General vision point number 5. This is applicable. COS 6771, COS 6590, COS 5620, and COS 5407 are all exempt transactions involving the original track that the claimant has engaged with. These are all boundary line relocations with the exception of COS 671, which is a boundary line relocation and an aggregation exemption. General evasion number 6 is applicable. The claimant has utilized 4 exemptions involving the proposed family transfer tract and the adjacent tracts in the claimant's ownership, as previously mentioned in COS 6771, COS 6590, COS 5620, and COS 5407. These exemptions, when combined with the proposed family transfer, do show a pattern of utilizing exemptions to create the equivalent of subdivision without subdivision review. General provision number 10, this is applicable. A boundary line relocation could be utilized to create a vacant tract for Damien to build on. General provision number 14, this is applicable. Current density is 1 dwelling per 69.6 acres, which is compliant with the 1 per 40 recommendation. The proposed family transfer would further exceed the recommended density at 1 dwelling per 34.4 acres. And last, general provision number 19, the information and exhibits provided by the claimant show that the proposal for a family transfer exemption does not comply with the requirements established in the sub-regulations for the use of this exemption. And now I'll go over the family transfer questions with the claimant. I believe Helen is in person there today.
Helen, if you could come up to the podium and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Helen, can I please ask you to state your name for record?
Helen Borden.
Thank you. Question number 1, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
You mean the parcel that we are talking about for the family transfer?
Correct.
Okay, no. I bought this, what I call the lower ranch, which were the 2 meadows, the one we are talking about and the one which is north. I bought it as a ranch in 1998.
Thank you. Question number 2, do you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No. No.
Question number 3, have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
There was this thing that dating back to 2006 that you mentioned. I mean, I had absolutely no idea how you have in your file 18 lots. What I remember, talking with the Nick Kaufman, who was helping me with the planning. We were thinking about doing 4 lots in this meadow. But my neighbor, Bill McQuirk, raised such an opposition. I even had death threats, so I backed off.
Thank you. Question number 4, will the property be developed?
Only to put a house, probably a barn, and then, farming.
Thank you. And last question, question number 5, will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Thank you. So that's the last family transfer questions. Based off staff analysis, CAPS is recommending denial of the proposed family transfer. And I will turn it back over to you, commissioners.
Thank you, Nick. Ms. Borden, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I exchanged emails with Nick before, and I'm surprised at some of the information that's in, the county computers, because it's, for example, this gravel pit. I did have an offer to have the North Meadow near my house be dug up for about 10, 15 acres in the days when Highway 93 was being fixed up in 2008, 2009. They offered, the company doing the work offered me a gravel contract because the gravel there was very good. However, all the neighbors decided that it would detract from their lifestyle and got an injunction. So the contract went to the Salish Kootenai tribes, which cleared 40 acres next to the ranch for gravel. So it's not on my property. It's just, I see it every day because nothing has been reclaimed. but it's on tribal land. I mean, that's kind of one of the oddities of the records. Also, maybe we should look a little bit at the history of this ranch. I mean, I love, digging into history.
Nick, can you take us to the property again while she's speaking?
Yep.
So we know where
Would
you're
you
at.
like to see some of the maps I wrote?
Sure.
Better than
if
this.
you could bring it up, that would be great.
Maybe zoom out a tad. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
There has been so much going on in that area that I think it's important to refer to maps. I'm a map.
And we can share this copy if you.
This ranch was settled.
Right. And just so you don't have to repeat yourself, if you could talk into the microphone, please.
Okay, so yeah, the history is fascinating. This ranch and the Mercer Ranch, which comes south of it, we have a common fence, was settled around 1845, 1850. And as far as I could tell from records, with the help of the GNRC, it was then ranched by somebody called Lil Sol. And there were two water rights, Lil Sol and then Mercer. When I came along with my husband in the 1970s and I bought 20 acres, at that point, the ranch had been taken over from it. It was in the hands of an older woman who just couldn't cope with it. So she sold the 220 acres of the ranch to a local doctor, Dr. Doherty, who cut it up in like 20 acre pieces, 10 acre pieces, 5 acre pieces. So I bought 20 and then moved away because of work situations. Anyway, meanwhile, the property was cut up in smaller pieces, and I had contacts in Missoula who told me when a piece would come up for sale, I bought it. So basically, I found myself when I came back to live here in '96. I found myself with 160 acres of a jigsaw of pieces, and I did develop, I did make some lots, but I always tried to do it in a manner that did not detract from the specific beauty of the place. And I threw an invitation to Nick to come up and look, because you drive down Muscat Lane and you just see, the property the way it was basically in the 70s. There are I think that some of the COS that Nick was referring to that was nothing to do with me. Must have been some of the neighbors, when they cut up their 20 acre pieces and sold them. I'm at the point, I'm in my 70s now, and I'm at the point where I want to I want to get into the final planning for the ranch. So last year I had a survey company, Northwest Survey. I had them do a 47-acre wildlife corridor, because where the ranch is located, it's between the mountains and the highway. And I thought it was important to have this kind of weird-shaped piece of land, but it is 47 acres, which gives a corridor for wildlife from the mountains to go down to a wetland area, which I own, which has the East Fork of Finlay Creek and then springs, and obviously is of great importance to wildlife. That doesn't show on the plots you have here. It's, And yes, there is this meadow which is on the south side of Muscat Lane, and it's not connected to the rest of the ranch. There is Muscat Lane in between, and I thought it would be a great place for my son and his wife to start, to build something, and as they can afford it, and do some of the farming that he loves to do besides his job. And it's a great opportunity. I mean, I don't mean to tug at your heart, of course, but you know, there's a lot of branching families who just the kids go away because they don't want to live that lifestyle Damien does, and I would like to reward him for it because he really loves the land, and I would like him to enjoy it on his own, you know, before I die.
Thank you.
You have questions?
Well, we might in just a minute here. So first, is there any public comment, either anyone else in the room or in the virtual room out there who would like to comment on this proposed family transfer? And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'd also like to recognize City Clerk Marty Rabine arrived to watch a well-oiled hybrid meeting machine in action here with Missoula County. Welcome. Questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Bourdon, for coming in today.
You're
I'll
welcome.
ask you a couple questions. So if I understand it right, you live in the house that's kind of on its own parcel in the middle of this property off of Musket Lane.
What Nick was showing you, and it's you can see the buildings on the map I gave you.
Yeah.
It's a little clearer. This is, from what I'm told, this is not a real parcel. It's a mortgage parcel. When I bought the ranch from a family named Gillette, Bob Gillette and his wife, I got a mortgage that was just the buildings, and the land was a contract for a deed.
So Nick, could you speak to that? Because this looks to us, if I be so bold to speak up for all of us.
Look, it makes much difference, you know.
Well, it could make a difference. It looks to us like if this family transfer were to proceed in the way you would wish, we would end up with 3 specific sellable parcels of land here. Is that correct? Maybe Nick.
Let me think. Okay,
maybe
so
Nick could speak to
actually, I
this.
could sell the wildlife corridor. I mean, technically, it would be possible. I mean, I don't want to do it, but you know, it's. Then there is the. So if you approved it, 2 meadows, the 5-acre, which might be a mortgage parcel or not a mortgage parcel, I don't know. I was told it's a mortgage parcel.
So if I might interject, so on this point, and maybe Nick or John Hart could interject here. If what we're looking at here is and was created as a mortgage parcel, would the boundary line associated with it be able to be relocated in such a way as to simply achieve the same goals, basically?
Yeah, I don't see what Nick means, actually, to be honest. I don't see what he means about doing a boundary relocation to give Damien this parcel. It's separated by the road. It's not connected to the rest of the ranch. And in terms of it's just more money for me and more time to do it for him. I don't see what else.
Hang on just a second, Ms. Bourdon. I think we might be on the same page, but talking slightly different language here. So, John or Nick, could you speak to the potential of achieving the goals of what is sought here through a boundary line relocation? Is that along the lines of what you're getting at, Josh?
It is, but this notion of a mortgage parcel is foreign to me, and I'd like to get some clarity. If the family transfer were to go through as you would like, it looks to me like we'd end up with 3 separate saleable parcels of land. And I guess I'd like to find out if I'm correct in that or not.
And if Ms. Bourdon, if you could just hang on just a moment and we'll get back to you. John,
Am I right or wrong on that?
Well, Commissioners, I'm not familiar with her other parcels of land, but if one of the parcels was created in the past through the exemption that allows somebody to carve off a part of their property and use that part that they've carved off as security for a loan, there was a time period where Missoula County, then once the loan was paid off, the boundaries of that parcel didn't go away and they weren't merged back with the parent parcel. And oftentimes we see in the past where that mortgage exempt parcel was then conveyed to a third party. And the Supreme Court has told us that if that is the case, then that mortgage parcel becomes a new tract of record that then can be sold independently You can use the boundaries of that parcel to do a boundary line relocation. It's treated just the same as any other tract of record any place in Missoula County. I don't know if the facts and circumstances of this parcel meet that criteria, but if they do, then it would be a tract of record that she could use for a boundary line relocation. Nick may know the details of that, though.
This is
Nick, just a minute, Ms. Bourdon.
So I am
Nick?
under the assumption that it is an independent tract of record, just based off of the previous COS that did involve both meadows in one parcel. It's specifically called out that this island parcel was not part of that COS. So if it was in fact attached to the greater 9.6 acre parcel, it would have had to been part of that COS. And I can pull that up if that would help.
Ms. Bourdon?
That's fine with me, because what we are talking about, this parcel is my home. Okay, I live there. And I intend to die there. So if I still have a mortgage on it, so I can't change anything. I would like to include it with that big meadow. That's fine with me, but I can't do anything at this point because I have that mortgage with Wells Fargo. And I've tried to tell them that, anyway.
No, and I think that is the case.
I'm stuck, but
I
I'm
think
telling you that I want to, this is where I want to stay. This is my place.
Sure, and I think the question before us is whether there's any opportunity on a mortgage parcel like this that is an independent tract of record to change the boundary line such that your home would stay with one of the tracts, but there would be a new tract as a result of the boundary line relocation that would be available for your son.
Well, our plan is to reforest that whole area. You see around the houses, we have already started to plant an orchard, and we are going to slowly reforest this meadow, which has been overgrazed over the years. That's been our plan. I mean, there is no. I really don't want to see a house there. I think it's better to go back to wild as much as we can do it with native bushes and pines, and we got a good irrigation ditch there.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
So Nick, could you bring up the map of what the family transfer would look like if it came through? So, thanks. So we're looking at this. It looks like we'd end up with 3 separate parcels of land. One, Ms. Bourdon, where your house is.
Yes.
And then to the north, another one. And then south of the road,
yes,
a third one, right? So what this looks like, it may not be the case, but what it looks like is you're creating a situation where your son gets a chunk of land, you remain where you're living, and you've also created a third parcel that then you could sell. And if that's the case, that's actually a subdivision. That's not a family transfer.
There's no way. I mean, this.
It looks to me, and I'm ready to be wrong. So I don't mean to argue. I'm totally ready to be wrong. It looks like there are 3 sellable separate units here, and there are 2 of you, which means one of them is going to be sold to somebody else.
No, it won't.
Well,
this is just too close to my house. This is my backyard. And I'm lucky to have a 35-acre backyard, but that's what I have, and I'm hanging on to it.
Could you?
So if I might interject, so what we're attempting here is currently you have 2 parcels,
and plus the wildlife corridor.
Yeah, I don't either. What we're looking at is to begin and end with the same number of parcels.
Yes.
And if and I'm just throwing this out hypothetically, as we're looking at this schematic where it's COS 1891, could it be possible that the boundary line that surrounds that certificate of survey be realigned to follow Musket Lane, so your home would remain with the parcel on the north side of Musket Lane, the other parcel south of Musket Lane would be the one that presumably would go to your son?
Yes, it's
Would
the
that-
one I marked in blue on the map.
Right, right. So what I'm describing would allow what is in blue to be transferred to your son. Everything to the north of Musket Lane
Stays with me.
stays with you.
Except everything north of Musket Lane becomes one parcel.
Right.
Because as it is, if this goes through the way you're describing, you could at some point say, I'm going to keep the 5 acres that I live on, but I'm going to sell this other 35.
Yeah, I told you, that was never happen. I mean, I'm not here to live with neighbors. I like having no neighbors. They don't count as neighbors down south. No, if you want me to take, if there is a way to expand this 5-acre mortgage parcel to the whole thing, I got nothing against it. Because it's staying with me until I die.
How about this for an option? Why don't we delay any action on this today? And what if you were to meet with our staff and see if what we were just describing here is possible? That would be the ultimately easiest way to move forward.
This is what you would like me to do, right? And then Damien would get his wife would
Right. We believe me, we want Damien and his wife to get this land south of Musket Lane. We're right with you on there. We also want to prevent this from becoming a 3-unit subdivision.
Yes. No, it's not.
Can I,
We're
all on the
interject
same
fast,
page.
Commissioners?
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to go to one part of the PowerPoint. There are some other tracks involved that could be utilized for a boundary line relocation, even if we take out the mortgage exempt track, if it is in fact a mortgage exempt track, because 1, 2, 3, 4 are all in ownership of Miss Bourdon, and because they do share common boundaries, these could be also utilized as for a boundary line relocation. I just wanted to make sure
Nick,
that point was taken.
Nick, could you show on this map here where the wildlife corridor is?
Nick, Helen, if
I'm sorry, Nick, could you show on the map where the 47 acres wildlife corridor is with that wetland area?
Do you know in what document that is referenced in? I'm not sure if I have any.
I don't have the COS number. Ken just filed it. If you have the latest filing from Ken, Northwest.
The latest filing would be this, I believe.
Is there any way I can approach this thing and point? Oh, on your computer. Okay, go ahead.
so, we're having some pointing going on for those in the viewing world.
I'm not sure exactly where on the COS the wildlife corridor is.
So, yeah, this is the piece that I'd like to give to them. Yeah, this is the old McQuirk property in the middle of the land. So the wildlife corridor, there is a little piece that joins.
You're saying this is the wildlife corridor?
It's further than that. It goes all the way to the power lines and right here. So it's up the hill, the plateau, the hillside, and down to the waterland.
Okay, so basically the wildlife corridor is at the to
Donut
the
shape.
east of the property we're talking about right now, down Musket Lane, kind of the southeast.
Yeah.
Track 9A.
It's all around the parcel that's 4997.
So here's my suggestion, rather than trying to hash it out right here, which is a little bit awkward given the technology and such. Ms. Bourdon, what if you tie in with staff, connect with Nick, and if you guys can meet up and talk through the options for a boundary line relocation rather than a family transfer that would achieve the exact same goals that are sought here, that would allow her son to have that southern parcel and would do so other than through a family transfer.
Okay, and I would, I will also try to talk Wells Fargo into taking the whole meadow for the mortgage, that north meadow. This way there would not be 2 parcels, be just one. I mean, different options,
Sure.
Maybe.
Nick, can you reconnect with Ms. Bourdon?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was a yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work together and see if we can't make this happen.
Do you want to talk to this nice young man?
Well, if the nice young man would like to say anything,
I'm sure
the
he
floor
does.
is yours. I'm assuming this would be the son.
I'm really proud of the fact that he loves the land.
Yes, testing. All right. My name's Damian Bordone. This was a great opportunity that my mom came up with actually for us. My wife and I tried looking for housing here earlier in the year. And with the increase in pricing in the housing market, it was just almost unaffordable to kind of get what we were hoping to get into. We talked back and forth about different ideas as to what we could potentially get into. And I've grown up on this ranch just north of Missoula. We're up there every weekend working there, my wife and I, and it would be amazing for us to actually be able to be up there full time. And it's just kind of a dream of ours. So whatever we can do to make this work would be amazing.
Well,
Thank you.
Sure appears you have options. If you work with Nick, I think you can come up with the right boundary lines to move around so you end up there.
Excellent.
And then we wouldn't even have to be
And
involved.
then we don't have to mess with this. So.
Easier the better.
Okay,
Thanks. Good luck.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So we'll go ahead and just keep this public hearing open for the time being until Nick and the Bordones are able to circle up and see if another option might be workable. So with that, thanks so much. You can stick around for the rest of the festivities if you want, but you don't have to. Okay, thank you. You bet. So our third and final public hearing today is the Alexandra Estates Phasing Plan Modification and Condition Amendment proposal before us. Tim Worley.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a request from WGM Group for a phasing plan modification, as well as a phasing plan extension, and then amendment of some conditions of approval for this major subdivision. Alexandra Estates dates back to 2011. It consists of 23 lots on 116 acres in 4 phases. And this project is located between Missoula and Lolo on the west side of Highway 93. Here's an aerial showing the parcel. It's actually multiple parcels, but the location of the subdivision along that west side of Highway 93. And zooming in a little bit, here is an aerial showing its location between Bird Lane on the north end and Valley Grove Drive on the southern end. So this request is essentially threefold. The request is to modify the phasing plan, to extend the phasing dates, and to amend certain conditions of approval. Let's start with the phasing plan modification. Throughout the history of this subdivision, the shapes, if you will, of the phases have remained the same. The request in this case is to simply swap phases 1 and 2. Currently phase 1 is on the southern end, so the first portion of the subdivision to be developed would be on the southern end. But the preference now is to move phase 1 to the northern end of the subdivision, and that consists of 6 lots adjacent to Bird Lane. And then phase 2 would switch to the southern 6 lots along Valley Grove Drive. So there's no change to the shapes of the phases with this requested modification. And one analysis that we undertook in this is to make sure that all the phases can operate independently and can mesh with the master conditions of approval, and we found that that was the case with this change. The conditions you'll notice in our conditions document, our master conditions document, have been adjusted to deal with the phase order change. I should note that there's a correction to be made on conditions 9 and 10. Condition 9, I think, makes reference to phase 2 when it should say phase 1, and condition 10, just the opposite. It makes reference to phase 1 when it should be making reference to phase 2. Jamie Erbacher from WGM pointed out that mistake in the master conditions, and we will change that should this modification go through today. So the second aspect of this request is to extend the 4 phases roughly 3 years into the future, which is the maximum period allowed by the subdivision regulations. So each of the 4 phases will be due for filing in late 2024 rather than this year. So on to the third aspect of the request, which is to amend certain conditions of approval. Those include conditions 9, 10, 11, and 12, as well as a condition related to ongoing weed management. So the non-motorized facility related conditions that I'm speaking of, and that's conditions 9 through 12, have to do with the requirement for a non-motorized facility immediately adjacent to the subdivision on the west side of Highway 93 that was required before the Bitterroot Trail was installed on the east side of Highway 93. And we acknowledge that there are new conditions on the ground, those conditions being the Bitterroot Trail itself, which is a fairly heavily trafficked trail. One concern that's been raised recently is that if there's trails on both sides of Highway 93, there's going to be a temptation to cross from one side of Highway 93 to another, which is obviously a public safety problem. And the Lolo School Superintendent has commented in the past that any path attributed to this subdivision that runs along Highway 93 really needs to run all the way into Lolo to provide access to school children. And since that's not really physically possible, we support the deletion of the trail requirement along the frontage of Highway 93. So in lieu of a Highway 93 path, what's being proposed by the applicant is a wider facility along the on-site road. The facility would expand in width from 5 feet to 8 feet. I also mentioned that there's one condition related to a weed management plan. This is more of an administrative fix where the dates for required milestones, if you will, in reaching weed management plan goals have actually expired. And so the applicant in this case has volunteered to basically restart the weed management plan and get those dates properly set in 2021 as opposed to being in the past. And it's basically an expired condition that needs to be restarted, if you will. So as part of our criteria for reviewing condition amendments, proposed changes need to be essentially minor in nature, comply with the subdivision regulations. These sorts of changes can't reduce protections or safeguards offered in the regulations. These changes can't have any essential impact. They have to be consistent with the growth policy and with the subdivision findings of fact. They can't be incremental changes that actually trigger sort of a cascade of other similar changes. There needs to be essential change to the area to justify the request, and in this case, that's the Bitterroot Trail. And economic realities can't be a factor in these sorts of requests. So staff's recommendation is for approval, and we have 3 distinct motions, and I should note that this is subject to that new master list of conditions. And there are your motions.
Thanks, Tim. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to speak? Jamie?
Hi, Dave. Commissioners, thank you. Do you mind if I do a quick screen share on mine?
Go for it.
Oh, well, maybe
Do we
not.
need
It
to
says only organizers and presenters can share.
Well, hang
Oh,
on.
you
should be able to now,
We can promote you quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, we have you.
You have me. All right, perfect. All right. So really, I just want to say thank you to Tim and the rest of the CAP staff for working on us with a phasing plan that they would recommend support of. So this subdivision has a long history dating back to 2002, and really this request now is driven by the need to amend the weed management plan, as Tim stated, and to find an alternative option for mitigation to the jug handle turnaround. And that jug handle turnaround is associated with phase 2. So during my short-term time at WGM, we've been exploring mitigation options for the turnaround. However, at this time, we haven't been able to find a solution that's supportable. So therefore, that's why we are requesting a phasing plan extension for the entire subdivision. And so in doing so, with this phasing plan extension and the modification, we will be able to file the first 6 lots in phase 1 as shown on the screen. And then that extended time frame will allow our traffic engineers to explore additional options with MDT, Public Works, and Planning Office. But in the event that a solution cannot be reached, the developer knows that he will not be able to file the additional phases of the subdivision.
Jamie, let's go back to that prior screen. So the idea with the jug handle is this, do I have this correct, that if you're on Bird Lane, rather than taking a left-hand turn, you'd go right and then turn left onto the jug handle to turn around if you're wanting to go north on Highway 93?
Right.
Okay. That is the backstory on the jug handle.
I
Yes.
appreciate that, Deb. I didn't understand it until then, so thank you.
Okay,
I
Jamie.
wasn't sure how it was going to work, so thanks. But it doesn't
Yeah.
matter because it's being phased out.
Right. It's quite possible that it would be phased out. So the improvements with phase 1 are shown on the screen, and they will include improvements to Bird Lane. Currently, Bird Lane has this branched intersection, if you will, and so that will be reduced to 1 intersection only onto Highway 93. There is a remaining portion of the underlying lot that would result if phases 2 through 4 are not filed, and that area is shown in pink here on the screen. As we file phase 1 of the subdivision regulations now require that a restriction be associated with that remainder lot, if you will. And that cannot be developed unless it goes through some sort of boundary line relocation with an existing lot. So just know that as this goes forward, phase 1 would only include those 6 lots, and that pink area, the remaining area, would not be developed unless it is contemplated through boundary line relocation with one of the existing lots to the south or lots 1 or 6. Oops, sorry. Figure out my screens here. There we go. And so with the condition amendment, we know that the trail may be physically feasible on this property and along Highway 93. However, as we consider the constraints of the land that the trail would connect to, we find that the trail really is almost a trail to nowhere along the highway frontage. We know that MDT does not want trails or walkways within the right-of-way, so future trails would need to be located on private property. So here I'm just showing a section of how a trail might be able to connect on private property. This area here is actually all within the right-of-way, and this ditch section along the highway is pretty steep. And so really, if you see a trail connection to the south, it would probably happen on this old logging trail. Here's a view without that line on top of it. But, you know, again, just showing that the highway frontage trail probably isn't the best location, and rather having the sidewalk internal to the subdivision is a better connection. Here's a view looking north. Here we see a number of lots that are already developed along Bird Lane. Heading further north, Bird Lane, I think it actually dead ends, but then we see Highway 93 here, and the frontage along Highway 93 for a good stretch of it is owned by DNRC. So an additional trail heading north is not likely, and if it does happen, it would probably happen with public funds, public dollars to make those improvements. So we are intending to keep the non-motorized access easement in the event in the future there is a trail that is desired on the west side of 93, and we would also agree to a petition for a RSID SID waiver that would require us to improvements as necessary along that frontage. Again, if that trail is desired on the west side. Just going over the condition changes that Tim had mentioned. As he noted, the condition currently relates to phase number 3 for condition number 9, and this is for the walkway improvements that would be adjacent to lot 1 on the frontage of Bird Lane here. And so I would request that the language be changed to reflect phase 1 as noted, but then also reflect that because we're not providing the pathway at this time along Highway 93, that be changed to access easement. So here is a look at that preliminary plat that shows where that trail connection would occur along the lot 1 frontage. And then for condition number 10, this required the trail connection along the utility lot and lot 10. And it had originally referenced phase 1, and as Tim noted, it would now reference phase 2. So here's my little pen mark of where that location of the trail would be. And then here is the preliminary plat with the dashed line showing that trail. An additional request is that I would actually like to request that condition number 11 be deleted. And the reason for that is that this condition actually requires plans for an installation of a 5-foot wide private pedestrian walkway and separated from the road by a minimum of 7 feet wide boulevard swale along the entire Alexander frontage of the subdivision with non-motorized access easement depicted on the plat. So again, because right now we are requesting that we not provide this trail, it does not make sense to provide plans for and review the installation by Public Works prior to final plat approval. So that is all I have.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Jamie or Tim, how do the proposed condition amendments that you just read, Jamie, align with what has been proposed by staff in the proposed motions?
So condition number 9, I think Tim would amend
12?
that to read. Yes, but we were fine with the amendments to 12.
So in these instances where you have shown some proposed amended language, does that align with what staff has presented or not?
So on condition number 9, the only change that we would request is that pathway be changed to access easement. So that's the only different request than what Tim has presented. And then on condition 10, this is just confirming what Tim had mentioned and that phase 1 would actually be phase 2.
And the deletion of condition 11, is that something contemplated in staff's proposed motions?
So currently, staff's motion would have left condition 11 in and changed it from a 5-foot wide paved pedestrian path to an 8-foot wide paved pedestrian path. But again, our request is to delete the condition entirely because we won't actually be providing that pathway along Highway 93.
Okay, we're gonna have to unpack that a little bit. So the other question I have before we move on is I'm a little confused by two of the schematics. So earlier on, Jamie, you showed something that I think it was just to the south of phase one, which is now listed as phase three, in the pink there. You'd mentioned something about that not being developed unless there was some sort of so what's going on there?
So the underlying, what I'm doing here is I'm showing you the underlying lots. So if this subdivision weren't platted, you would have this here as 1 lot, 2 lot, 3 lots, 4 lots, and 5 lots. Okay. With our phasing plan modification, we would move phase 1 from the south down here, which is mostly in the floodplain, up here to where there is more buildable area, and it's outside of the floodplain. And that, with the platting of phase 1, this pink area would remain as a remainder, if you will, and that area cannot be developed according to the subdivision regulations unless it goes through further subdivision review under the Platting Act or through an exemption such as a boundary line relocation. And so that
on the other,
may happen.
so that's not phase 3?
No, it's part of phase 3 if phase 3 gets platted. So
Okay.
it would be part of phase 3 if phase 3 gets platted. But if we can't find an alternate solution for mitigation to this jug handle, phases 3, 4, and 2 will not be platted.
Okay, so those additional and subsequent phases are predicated on the jug handle dilemma.
Looks like there's a lot of incentive for that jug handle thing to be solved.
There
Okay,
is, and so that's why the request for the extension.
So before we go on, is there any public comment on the proposed phasing plan modification and condition amendment? Anyone out there in the virtual world who's been waiting to comment on this all day? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Additional questions, and I guess the one that overriding one I would like some clarification on is from staff. So Tim, could you join us again and speak to the proposed amendments or changes that Jamie has suggested?
I think it might help, Jamie, if you could go back to showing, I think you said that you wanted condition 11 deleted, is that correct?
Correct.
So my understanding of condition 11 is that it actually has to do with Alexandra Drive. And at least in the submitted materials, it was, I mean, the way I saw it, it was proposing an expansion of the non-motorized facility along that interior road that would provide access to all the lots. So I think that's how it reads, because it talks about the entire Alexandra Drive frontage of the subdivision.
Oh, yes. Okay, Tim, yes, that makes sense. I was thinking at the Alexandra subdivision frontage.
Yeah, because we support the deletion of that facility and retaining just an easement along 93. But just in being consistent with your request, which we support, you would expand the non-motorized facility along that interior road within the subdivision.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
So retain condition 11.
Yeah,
Correct.
the modified
Retain
form.
11, but change 5 foot to 8 foot, which is what Tim has in his report.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so we're sticking with the language from staff that we originally saw. How about the other, the other conditions. Was it 9 and 10? That there was some suggested modification from the applicant on? Yeah. Tim?
And I believe we could support that change because it just makes it clearer.
We like clearer.
Okay, clear is good. How about the, what was, okay, so it would be 9 as amended. What was the other one, Jamie? Was it 10?
Correct, and I believe this is what Tim is recommending on his revised motion.
Okay.
Wait, so I'm confused. So number 10, you're okay with what Tim has proposed?
So number 10, as depicted here is what was in your proposed motion, Tim, is that correct?
Yeah, my master set of conditions had number 1 and number 2 flipped, and Jamie noticed that in our document, and so it's more of an administrative correction.
So the only change to staff's recommended motions or conditions today would be pertaining to condition 9. Is that correct? Jamie?
Yeah, I think
Yep.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Other questions? Josh?
Thanks. So Jamie, this is more of a, and Tim, kind of a general question. 2011 was a long time ago. Why the 10 years between then and now to see this thing realized?
Sure. I think a lot of it had to do with the economy at the time. And then when the Tiger Grant was approved and the trail was constructed on the east side of Highway 93, MDT had requested that the developer reconsider mitigation options for that jug handle. And there was times where the developer and the WGM team were considering options, MDT, and trying to find alternate options just hasn't worked out. We did propose some alternate options to CAPS, but CAPS didn't feel that mitigation option was enough at that time. And so we are just requesting additional time for that mitigation.
So were some of those other proposals like signaling Valley Grove or Bird Lane?
We did not propose a signal just because of the cost associated with that. We had considered some options as far as advisory language that could be included in the covenants. Options would include taking a right out of the subdivision, heading to Lolo, turning around in Lolo, and then heading back to Missoula. I think that just a natural instinct of somebody may be to get in the left or in the center turn lane and use that as like a merging lane.
Yep.
So that may still occur, but it's not something that we would want to advise on.
Great, thanks.
Other questions? Juanita, anything?
No. Ready to tackle it.
Okay, let us tackle it. Tim, do you want to flash up the motions again?
We're gonna have to. Do we do this in
Three separate ones?
3 separate motions? And I'm gonna take the first easy one. I move to approve the Alexandra.
Can you get them on the screen?
Oh.
Tim, could you flash them up there?
Sorry.
Juan just memorized them. An overachiever.
Oh, can't get it. Nauseous.
We did. It's like car sick.
I can't look.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start picking away at this. Motion 1.
I'll take the easy one. I'll move to approve the Alexandra Estates phasing plan modification and extension.
I'll second that.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I will move to approve amendments to conditions 9, 10, 11, and 12 related to elimination of the non-motorized pathway along the subdivision frontage of Highway 93.
But what condition
So
number
would
9
it
are we?
be
is
condition
this?
9 as
Jamie's version of 9. Is that
presented
as-
by the applicant today?
Yeah, after Tim would make what he called an administrative change.
No, but I thought that was for 1
Well,
and
that
2.
was for 1 and 2. Sorry.
This would be the substantive change.
Okay, substantive change.
So, Tim, can you,
Help us out with number 2.
yeah, as far as condition 9 goes, let the record state that the motion reflects the language presented by applicant's representative today.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well
Done,
said.
Dave.
Well done.
So, oh, you second?
Oh, yeah, I will second that. Yes, I second that.
Further discussion. Tim, are we straight?
Yes, I believe you're straight.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Great,
3.
thank you. And Tim, thank you for the clarification on condition number 11. It's one of those things where I'm reading it before the hearing. And I'm like, oh no, I think I missed that. So thank you for clarifying that and correcting me.
Okay, one more motion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, and I move to approve amendments to condition 18 related to the weed management plan, subject to staff's recommended changes.
What do you think, Josh?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion as the dramatic pan out happens on the camera there? Whew. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, we made it through our first hybrid meeting of the Missoula County Board of County Commissioners. Give yourself a hand, yeah.
Thanks to the staff for
Yes, thank you
a
all.
lot of work on their part.
Good job. Any other further business to come before the commission today? Seeing none, we will be adjourned.
Well done, all.